All right, welcome to the Teaching a Rockstar podcast. And on today's show, we have Rahh, a.k.a. Principal Rahh on social media. Everybody knows this guy. All right, man, Principal Rahh began his career as a middle school teacher in Watts, California. And, his success there as a turnaround teacher in his first few years, that is what ultimately led him to a dean of students position. And currently, he serves as the principal at the school he founded, University Pathways Public Service Academy, or what they call the U, which is an urban public school in South Central LA. He consults with schools and districts. He speaks at schools and districts and conferences. He's the author of a chapter in the book Restorative Practices Meets Social Justice. This dude was doing restorative circles before anybody even knew we were supposed to call them restorative circles. All right, here we go. Principal Rahh on the Teaching a Rockstar podcast. Let's do this.
This is the Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman.
Before we get this party started and dig into the conversation, here is a quick word from our sponsor, the Boston Scally Company. I have found the absolute best caps on the internet at bostonscally.com. The Boston Scally Company is the online purveyor of caps with the most attitude. Some people refer to them as a flat cap or a Gatsby or an Ivy cap, but the cap everyone is really looking for is the traditional Boston Scally cap. Founded by the son of a lifelong educator, the Boston Scally Company designs and sells caps that capture the unique culture of the Boston people with an authentic style that is filled with blue-collar sarcasm, rugged integrity, and a truckload of attitude. Pick up the authentic Boston Scally cap at bostonscally.com.
The Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman.
All right, man, this is, you got, how many days left until you go back and see the kids?
Man, I got another week, man. January 13th.
Really?
13th. Yes.
So you were off like the week of Christmas and then the last week and then a whole nother week.
That's 3 weeks off, man. 3 weeks off. So, I mean, there's no excuse. We are rejuvenated.
Man, that's the thing. There's a lot of emotional healing going on for teachers in those 3 weeks.
Fact. No, real, for real, man. I mean, you need it, though. You definitely need it. I mean, it's halftime.
Yeah, like that's one of those things. Like if you don't teach, like there's no way you could understand. It's like being a parent. You can't describe what it's like to be a parent. You got to be the parent, man.
No, absolutely. Some people just don't get it, though.
No,
I just don't get it. Only those who know.
Right. Yeah. And man, so like when you were coming up through high school and like in junior high and high school and all that stuff, did you know then that you're going to be a teacher?
Absolutely not, man. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. So, I mean, I'm born and raised in Compton. I don't know how familiar you know California, but born and raised in Compton. But you hear that. Most people hear that. They hear that the stigma comes with it.
Right.
Man, it was just some crazy story. Man, I come from a two-parent household. My father was a professor for over 30 years. You know what I'm saying? My mom was an educator as well. And I'm the youngest of six. Man, the last thing I wanted was to be a teacher. Last thing I wanted, because I looked at that as like, man, that's square. I'm not trying to do that. I fell in the trap of wanting to be a rapper, wanting to be an athlete. Those are two things. You a young black male in Compton, it's like you either rapping, acting, trapping. Those were the things. Rapping, acting, or trapping. Those are the things. So, football didn't work out. Tried to rap, that didn't work out. And I was just looking for a job, give me some money. And I actually ended up being a teacher assistant. And what happened was my father was telling me, you'll love it. Like, I don't know. And I'm a teacher assistant, and I'm starting to teach the class, and the teacher is sitting back in the chair.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching the class, and I asked the question, I'm like, man, how much you make? He's like, man, I'm making like $60K, $70K. I'm like, man, I'm making $13 an hour. Right? And I'm like, yo, I got it. Something is terribly wrong. So, I went to go take the CBEST to start to substitute teach. And then anybody that knew me or know me, they know I always loved helping people, though. That was my currency. I always, even when I was playing football, I always was a motivator. I always wanted to help. So when I seen that I was helping kids, that was my currency. And the next thing you know, man, I'm just like, this is it. This is this is my calling right here. This is my hidden treasure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I got into teaching, man.
And at that point, had you gone to college already?
So I had a scholarship to Tuskegee, in Alabama, playing football, and then I actually lost my scholarship. So I lost my scholarship, came back, and always knew the critical hope. Like my father, my mom, they always pushed education. They always pushed education. So somewhere deep down through going through life, I was the wannabe. So I was and if you know anything about the wannabe, right? I wanted the life, and I mean by wannabe, I wanted to look like the trap. I wanted to be the gangster.
Yeah.
I wanted to do all that. The wannabe is the worst, almost the worst of the bunch. If you in education, you had the real deal, kid. Those they cool. They chilling back, relaxed. But the wannabe, they want to prove something. They want to prove that you can do something. So I was kind of like in that mode. And anyways, I went to college, got my degree from in Black Studies and ethnic studies from Dominguez Hills, and then I moved forward to go get my master's in special education and my second master's in education, and that's how I moved forward.
Yeah, man. When you showed up in Tuskegee with coming
man, that was a culture shock, man. That was a culture shock coming from a city boy.
Yeah,
and you hit up out there. I mean, I took a trip out there, so I knew kind of like what I was getting myself into. But you take a little 4 or 5 day trip, and then you out there. Oh man, it was. I tell people all the time that I love my short experience there, but it was a blessing getting my scholarship taken away from me and coming back, really? And it was a blessing, man, because I definitely wouldn't be in education. I probably would have been still trying to pursue, other things, and to come back and then fall on education, fall on like motivating kids, especially that look like me and Compton and Watts. That's the home run.
Man, like how many times does that happen in my life? I mean, everyone's life, where you think, there's some devastating thing that happens in your life at the moment, and you realize years later, that was a total blessing in disguise.
Man, absolutely. I mean, I tell my students, I tell people around me, my boys around me, just friends around me that, everything happens for a reason. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Alchemist.
Yep.
I don't know if you read it. Man, The Alchemist literally changed my perspective in my life, ultimately. I mean, everybody I've referred that book to can really identify where they're at in their life right now in the book. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, are you at the beginning phase? Are you at the point where you're getting robbed, Santiago, in the merchant shop? You're cleaning up. Like, where are you at in the book? And I just know when I was coming back, and one thing in the book is like, the universe will come together for things to align for you, and even the good, the bad, like those L's are lessons, and it's going to get you to where you need to be. And it's like anything worth having is worth fighting for, but you got to be prepared for that fight. And sometimes those L's is that those wounds that's getting you prepared for that fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And when you're in the classroom, and at what point did you start thinking about school leadership and campus leadership? Was it right away?
Absolutely not. Honestly, I mean, I think I started thinking of leadership probably around year 3 when I was in the classroom. Yeah. I was lucky enough to start teaching at a school that my father graduated from. Right. So my father graduated from this middle school in Watts. One of the most challenging middle schools in our state, or in the nation, actually. And the history of this, just give you a little history of this middle school. So this middle school is in the middle of like 4 housing projects, right? The elementary schools, like, it's like really like, okay, if you're in elementary, if you're living in this housing project, you go to these elementary schools around here, and if you're in this area, you go to these elementary schools, and if you're in this area, and then when it's only one middle school at this time, and they all come to this middle school, right? And it's a melting pot of just different dynamics. So to fast forward, so I'm teaching there, and I'm starting to see leaders. It's just like, they just don't get it, man. They just didn't get it. It was more of just like, hey, I'm here to just do my 3 years, my 4 years. Hopefully I get a strong cohort and I get promoted. Or just to say, hey, I taught in the inner city, or I led in the inner city, and then move on to the next. And I'm like, man, this home for me, man. I live around the corner. My family here. I got cousins that's attending the school. Like, this is more than just, hey, teach and go home for me. So, I'm sitting back in some of the meetings. I'm looking at the leaders. I'm like, yo, I think I could do that. And I think I could do it better than you. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like what that triggered me of like, I got to change this narrative around not just Watts and my students and my family, but change the narrative just in education, especially out here in California. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like that's a slippery conversation a lot of times with those kind of populations. Because here's what I found, and I'm not saying this is 100% true. I'm just saying, like, generally this is oftentimes true, is that in some of those unique socioeconomic conditions, it's almost as if there's two people that are really successful. One, the people that are from there and they get it and they've lived the lives these kids are living right now, so they can identify. Or two, you have to be so passionate about wanting to be the one that makes a difference in that kid's life. Like, if you're just in it, just okay, it's a teaching job, there's no way it's going to work. You have to want it more than anything to be successful for those kids.
No, absolutely. Our students, man, I was that kid. I think that's what makes it, like, I'm that kid. I'm walking. I'm that kid. So, and our kids, of course, kids can sniff a fake a mile away.
Yeah.
They can sniff you out. You can try to cover it up with all the you can they can sniff you out if you truly and authentically about this life that I talk about. You know what I mean? Saving lives daily, transforming lives daily. If you're about it, kids know about it. But if you're not, they can clearly dissect that real quick. So seeing that, like, time after time after time again, it's like, man, you're either going to do two things. You're either going to fight or flight, right? And it's like, for me, I love the classroom, but it was like, I got to do something, especially for my community. And I told myself I never want to get disconnected from the classroom. When I become a principal, I always want to be the principal to say, I'm not going to lose myself. Once I'm a principal, I'm not going to lose the classroom, because you sometimes you get into the principal seat and you can lose that touch of what it's like in the classroom. And
fast for
I didn't want that. I didn't want that. So I always promised myself, like, man, I'm gonna always remember what it's like, and I'm a front line type of leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I think that's the difference, though. Like, since you were there and since you grew up there and you knew those kids, you knew the community, you have family still there in it. Like, I think, like, for like, that has to be like the determining ingredient that kept you in the hallways, kept you in the classes, kept you leading on the front line.
Absolutely. Because you're looking at that now. Now it's more than just your classroom. It's more than just even that one kid. You're talking about, like, trying to reverse engineer something that is, like, really complex, right? And, like, really diving into, like, hey, this formula of, like, relationships matter, right? Like, kids learn from who they relate to, connect to, and who can deliver a message that they get, right? Yep. And if you in it and you understand it, you got the education, now you like, hey, I've been in, let me teach you how to navigate this, and let me teach you about this content in life, right? If you're coming in, it's like you're going to have to really dive in to understand that. Like, I always tell people, like, you need to be self-aware, culturally aware, like, so you can understand how to deliver a message. And usually the time I tell people, most of the people those who deliver a message usually have gone through some mess, right? So it's like, you want to deliver this message. So, like, you're going to have to get messy. You're going to have to learn a little bit. So now leading the school, it's like, it's daunting though too, because the community is looking at you like, you're putting in your blood, sweat, and tears. Yep. And, they get behind you, your teachers get behind you, and the students get behind you because they know that you're authentic. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or in their language, keeping it 100.
How did you go from that classroom job, to the role of an administrator?
You know what? It was crazy. I went from, there was an assistant principal at the middle school. It was like, hey, man, we love what you're doing in your classroom, man. It's amazing. We want you to be the dean of students. So I got pulled out to be the dean of students. And then I started to do some work at the college. And I was doing this things called circles. I was just doing circles in my classroom. Like, we called it, we had our own little club, and it was like social emotional. Then somebody came along and was like, man, you're doing restorative practices. And I was like, what the heck is that, right? And then I got into it with some authors, and some people was like, hey, they want to come and see how you're doing this with your kids. So I'm just doing my thing. I'm just doing my natural thing. And then next thing you know, after becoming the dean, they was like, man, you need to become a district restorative justice coordinator. So, like, literally 1 year as a dean, I then became a district coordinator. I was still assigned to that school. And then our district gets shut down for a bomb threat. So I'm one of the people that got to go around and make sure the schools are safe, and I meet a principal who was in one of my workshops when I was doing school-wide restorative practices, restorative communities. She was in there, and she was like, man, I'm looking for an assistant principal that can do restorative practices. And I said, hey, I'm looking too. So then
let's do this.
Let's do this. So I did that for a year and a half as an assistant principal. And then the district came and was like, hey, we're opening up in the school right back home in Watts. I was like, really? I was like, we would love for you to do this. And I said, well, let's do it. You know what I mean? And that's how boom. It was literally as soon as I stepped out of the classroom, like 3-4 years, and it was boom. Now we're leading the school.
And so when you showed up, so that school, like you founded that school, did you hire all those teachers, or were they already in place and you're bringing them over?
You know what? It's grassroots, man. Everybody that's in that building was selected from me, and that's special. You know what I mean? Like that is real. Like everyone in there was selected by me. So it's all on me.
Yep. Yeah, that's the good news, and also that's the challenge of it all, because like you get exactly who you hired, you get exactly what you thought you wanted, but now like there's so much accountability and pressure. Like, hey man, you got the people you asked for. Now it's all up to you.
Absolutely. I mean, hiring is so critical. You got to have the right team, and I'm somebody that is just like, I'm a firm believer that you get a whole bunch of people around the room that's smarter than you, and you'll win. And for you to realize that and know, like, hey, you're not the smartest in the room, so get everybody smarter than you and let them win. And what I learned is, know when to get in, but the biggest, know when to get the hell out the way and let teachers do their thing. And that, I think that's been the biggest win for me as a leader and for us as a school is just, having teachers and educators, but also like down to my parent rep to everyone having high integrity. Like they have high integrity, and it's really key to 3 things that we focus on. And one is, I don't know if you're familiar with Patrick Lucioni's work, but being humble, being hungry, and being smart. Like those 3 characteristics of a team player, we really work behind.
You know what it is, man? I think it's interesting because, like, you can kind of tell in your personality. There's, there's a whole bunch of love and compassion for sure, but there's also a little bit of competitiveness, which isn't a bad thing in education. Like, we want to be the best, we want to be great, but like all that you've gone through, grown up, like your past through, like athletics. That's obviously competitive, but even the rap game, that's really competitive. And then when you put that same characteristic into something so important as education, that's a great formula.
Yeah, you got that chip. Like I got that chip on my shoulder. I think that's just like coming up in. It's like I'm supposed to be here. Like that's how I look at it. Like I'm supposed to be here. This, I beat the system type of thing. Like that's the mindset of a lot, because it's separated by inches. Me and my boys growing up, it's literally separated by inches off of the people I've lost along the way, people who chose different routes. And it's all about the small decisions you make every day, right? And you look up and it's a mile, and those inches that you hit. I'm reading a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and it talks a lot about that, for falling in love with the process of becoming great and falling in love with the process of your journey, right? And I think it's like really critical for leadership to say, like, I got this chip on my shoulder. I'm aware of this chip. Right. And my teachers are aware of it, but it's also my hunger, but it's also like, it's a lot on what I talk about and revolutionizing education, like this revolutionizing the educational game. Like we can make an immediate impact on a kid's life, and we can make an immediate impact in our community. That's positive. And if you have that opportunity, why not?
Yeah, man, that's such a powerful thing. Just the idea, I think, we almost take it for granted because it's what we do for a job. And it's like, it's just, we show up every day, but having the thought every day coming across, like as you exit the car, you close the car door, as you're walking across the school parking lot, looking at the doors you're about to enter, thinking, oh my gosh, like it's overwhelming if you really consider just the power of the role that we're about to embark on as we step through those doors and cross the threshold into that school, step down the hallway, go into our classroom. And right in that moment, we really do have the power to change the trajectory of a kid's life. It's insanely, it's just so amazing.
No, it's crazy just to see and to celebrate the transformation in kids, right?
Yeah.
And not just that, celebrate like the teachers that are like doing the work, like that is like you are truly doing, like you're saving lives. Like you're saving lives daily and transforming lives every day with your craft, with the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you love, the way you just inspire. It's just fascinating, man. Of what educators truly do on a daily basis. And definitely unsung heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, like that's the code. Like we say changing a kid's life, but that's really code for saving that kid's life.
No, absolutely, man. And I mean, like, I'm that person that I'm just like completely transparent with like the mission that we're on, right? And being on this mission, not just like in our community in Watts and in Compton, it's like you hear the negative talk all the time. You can see TV shows that depict these things, and it's a lot of great things. Like we got some great things going on, and that's why you see I push it on social media, push it all the time, and you got to kind of wear this badge of honor of like, wait, no, this is not what everybody want to put out there, right? In regards to media, we got some amazing things going on, and it's really important for us to control that narrative and build the audience behind it, because it's truly something special. Watts is unlike any other place in the nation, man.
Man, like that journey you talk about, I think that's one of the coolest parts of education and working in the school and doing that teaching thing is like you show up in August and we're about to go on this 9-month journey together. This 10 months together with these kids. And this 10-month journey, like that, I think sometimes we get lost in the details of scores and attendance and all that other, all the data points we're trying to hit. But man, that journey of that, bringing a family together in that classroom, bringing that family together in your school for those months, and as they move forward, because what they're learning, man, is how to create their own families.
Absolutely.
In the future. Man, it's just an amazing career.
Man, we talk about that. I mean, like, look, I got Crenshaw on. It's about the marathon, right? And when you're talking about this marathon concept with rest in peace Nipsey Hussle, but if you talk about this marathon concept and you're applying it to public education, right? You're talking about like this journey. And you're talking about going all in for kids. Like he talked about all money in. We're talking about like all love in. And like love conquers, right? But it's like macro to micro, like especially for school leadership. And I visit principals all the time, and I talk to them all the time, and they hit me up like, how do you get your staff to do this? Or how do we get in this? It's like that unit of change. And for me, like my educators are so important to me. Like I care about them as human beings because we're going on this marathon together. Like if we're on this marathon, I need to like build this family amongst us. And, I want them to know I know them more than just them as a professional. So I'll call them by their first name, like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, let's talk. Hey, Jennifer, let's talk. Let's have a conversation because this is, I care about you and your well-being. And for family at my school, we on Mondays, every Monday morning, we have, it's a school-wide assembly, but we call it family. Like, so every Monday, students coming, hey, we have family today. Yes, we're going in there, and it's about breaking bread every morning and being inspired about the week and just like really falling in love with the process of becoming great. Instead of like an advisory or a homeroom, like we break it down to kinship. So kids are like, hey, we got kinship today, and it's all about that kin, and it's like about being connected and building interpersonal relationships, right? So like this family concept and this marathon concept combined together, it's revolutionary when you see the impact it's making on all those other data points. Like those data points are cool, but like out here in California, we've been focusing on this like achievement gap for the last 30 years. I think across the nation, this achievement gap for the last 30 years, but in particular California, for like young Black and brown students, like it has actually grown. Right, like the disparity has grown and out here. So if we've been focused on it for the last 30 years, data, and it's grown, then we're doing something terribly wrong. Yeah. Right? Like we're missing the boat. And I think the boat is that love, it's that Maslow's over Bloom stuff, you know what I mean? And then you gotta really connect. And we've been seeing it. We've been seeing nothing but success.
Man, I'll tell you what, this is one of the things I find across the nation when I work with school districts. And, especially in August, when I show up in August, I'm doing the back to school thing. And what I try to help people understand is those schools, some schools I'm at, and, the superintendent gets up first and he's talking about how terrible things are. And here's the data. And look, we're failing our kids and we're going down. And, the gap is widening and he's going on. And that's all they focus on. Well, I try to help them understand, man, at the schools where they're killing it, where things are amazing, they don't talk about that stuff. Mm-hmm. They talk about the love. They talk about the passion. They talk about the family. They talk about those types of things. And their argument is, well, they don't have to talk about the data because they have all, I said, no, man, like you're missing the point. The reason they don't have to talk about the data is because they're focused on the other stuff. Yeah. When you focus on the other stuff, you go all in 100%, all the data stuff takes care of itself every time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think like, when you do a lot of talking and not enough walking, right? Yeah. And I think like for my role at my school, it's about how can I inspire? Like when I was in the classroom, I was always trying to figure out different ways to inspire kids, right? And I kind of related leadership to kind of like sports in a sense. I'm a big sports fan, right? And it's like I always want to kind of keep my ear to the streets with my teachers, ear to the streets with my students on like what's going on, so I can make sure that we are always being inspired every day, like daily, right? And when you hear that, like you have that qualitative data and you have that quantitative, right? And that qualitative sometimes like make the biggest impact on the quantitative. And,
sure.
Aaron is listening and then like applying different things and being open, saying like, oh, I don't get this. How can we make this better? And I think for the most part, we do a lot of this talking. And go back to my sports reference. I think we're a lot, and I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. I think a lot of districts are like Jerry Jones. They're sticking to these some things and coaches that they shouldn't be sticking to for a long period of time, expecting a different result, and just being like, hey man, come, like we got to change this game. Like we've been talking about this data for 30 years, like similar to sticking with the coach for way past due. And it's like, we got to change this up.
Yeah, man. I've always said like it sounds counterintuitive, but I tell people, man, like they always want to know what makes the difference between the most successful schools. And one of the things is the most successful schools, the ones that are really killing it out there, they are the first ones to give up on initiatives. And people are like, well, what do you mean they give up? Well, as soon as they see it ain't working, they give up and they go on and do something else. Where all those other schools that are struggling, they see something that's not working, so they do more of it, of what's not working. And they do it harder and do it louder and do it bigger. And now it's really not working. They just refuse to give up. Because I think in education, we all come from, not all of us, but a lot of educators come from a history of you don't quit, you don't give up, you keep. And sometimes that bleeds over into when things are ineffective, they still don't give up rather than moving on to something else, man.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's like they got the shovel and they're just like digging it, right? They're digging their own and they just keep on going like, man, and they're just digging. So it's like, wait, hold on, listen, we're totally off the mark here. Like the treasure's over there, like, or whatever the case may be. It's like, you got to see like, yo, this is not working. And let's change this. And I think especially with leadership, sometimes it's kind of like you have those who go into a journey who need to know everything about the journey, right? Like we're going into the woods or something. It's like, hey, I have this. I need to know exactly where we are going, right? And then you have those who's like, I kind of know that it's somewhere over there, and I believe that we're going to get there. Right. And it's like that blind faith of like, hey, y'all with me. Right. And sometimes you need people to say like, hey, we're going here. And I truly believe that it's here. And I've done the work. We believe in love, and let's go, and progress monitoring on the way. And then you got people that's like, they're so afraid to jump into something that's different because they need to know exactly everything that's in order before they make that jump. Right. Yeah. And then a lot of times they never make it because it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have everything aligned. And when you're talking about like getting to know kids, like, hey, well, like if you say language matters, why don't you change the language around your school? Stop calling it a homeroom. Call it something special that's like about your school community. Right. Language can change just everything. Right. You talk about relationships. And if I'm walking to you and I talk with principals all the time, it's like, hey, man, do you know your kids here? Like, do you know how important knowing that kid name over there could do? Like not just for him, but for his whole group of friends. Oh my God, the principal know my name, right? So like those little points make a huge difference.
It's everything, man. I'll tell you one of the coolest things I saw. I'm trying to think of where I would think it was in Virginia, and I was speaking to the school administrators. And before I spoke, every administrator had to do a quick, like a TED style talk of 4 or 5 minutes about their school and the year coming up. It was really good. And there are a handful of brand new principals that just been hired. And they did their thing about what they're going to do. And then finally, this guy, he was at the high school. He gets up for his talk and he says, I was hired 2 weeks ago. I have no idea what I'm going to do because I haven't met these people.
Yeah,
I need to meet these people. I need to meet my teachers. I need to talk to these kids. And then I'll tell you, it's going to be great. It's going to be exciting. Here's some ideas I have, but I have no idea until I meet them and we live together. And then we're going to figure this thing out. And I thought, like, that guy, he gets it. Like, that's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you gotta live. You gotta live with somebody. Know the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And and what I found with talking, what I found with talking with leaders is those who get that point with the relationship aspect, the interpersonal aspect, and knowing and I go back to it. It's like a coach on a basketball team. It's like you got to know who's your point guard. Like who's going to who on your staff? Who's the person that is great at this? Who's the great at data? Who's the great at who's the great relationship builder? Who's on your team? Then what kids? What do they love? What they don't like so much, right? And once you kind of streamline that and you engineer something and you whip something up real good with understanding those dynamics, you'll be able to push forward and steamroll this thing and really have some great things going on. You know what I mean?
I think, that's one thing to do in the corporate world that's a little bit better than us in the education world is allowing people to really be introspective and self-aware at their strengths. Where, like in the education world, like if you've been in the game for 30 years, so you're going to be the team leader. They might not have any interest or they might not have any skills and they might have any leadership qualities, but because of the 30 years, they're going to make them the team leader. Or, with different populations, like that's another slippery conversation that people, hey man, it's okay if you don't feel your strength is with kids in poverty. Like that's cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, and go find your kids. Like go to a school
find that. You'll be doing us all a favor.
Yeah,
you'll be doing us all a favor to go find that. I think I want to take your point, man. A lot of times, man, in education, it's like you do the time, you next in line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like really crazy to think. I'm like, no, that's not because just because you do that time, man, you could do that 20 years and it's you could suck. Right? Yeah. You cannot be you could have been like, and a lot of times in our areas we have teachers that come and just want to hide out. This is our hideout spot. This is where I could come and nobody bother me because they're coming to teach these kids. We're coming to save these kids, and it's like, no, I think it's go do us all a favor. Go find where you want to be at. There's a place for you. This is not the place for you, right? And even in leadership, sometimes it's always you did the time, you next in line, and just because you have done 4 years as an instructional coach or whatever doesn't mean that you're ready to sit in the seat of the principal, right? And like when you gotta come with skills, you gotta come with a vision, you gotta come with interpersonal relationships building, you gotta come with these things, or just stay. It's cool. You could be a great instructional coach, you could be a great assistant principal, but when you step in the seat, be ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the schools, I do this, I haven't done it this year a lot, but last year I did a lot of this thing called Field Trip Friday where I'd go visit a school on a Friday and just to hang out and see what's going on because, man, there's some really interesting, that's the thing about schools. Like you can walk into any school and you're going to find some mind-blowing, awesome thing happening. Yeah. And I went to a school, and it's a school that's been turning around. It's a huge high school here in Texas. We build giant high schools so we can field better football teams. And we've got like 5,000 kids in a school. And
wow.
And yeah, so you get a principal, and then you have, I don't know, I think they got maybe 12 assistant principals or something like that. Uh-huh. And then I go and I heard the school's like an unbelievable turnaround story, and their kids don't look like the kids that are supposed to perform really well, and they're crushing the district, and they're at the top. So I go over there to find out, have a brand new principal, and he goes, "Hey man, I can't wait to see my school. Come on in." And we go into the cafeteria. not only does he know these are 5,000 kids. He knows every kid. He's talking about their little sister's cheerleading practice. He talks about where their mom works. He knows everything about everybody. And by the way, he doesn't even have an office. He gave his office away to somebody else that needed an office. He didn't need an office. What do I need an office for?
Exactly. He gets it.
Yeah, man. So he has desks. Yeah, that's the thing, man. So he has desks around the school where those are. He'll just drop down. That's his desk right now. So he's a bunch of schools like desks in the hallway, that's little awesome. Tiny desks. Yeah, and so he sits there. But here's what else I love about it is he requires one day. I forget how often it is. I want to say maybe it's one day every 2 weeks or one day a month where his assistant principals can't do assistant print. They have to be in classrooms. They lose their radio. They take away the phone, take away the keys. You got to be in classrooms with kids, with teachers, going class to class to class, being in it. And there's no discipline on that day. There's no nothing for you. And like making them be a part of it still, rather than just seeing those kids that are getting sent down every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between playing offense and defense. Right. Yeah. Like that principle is he's playing offense. He's going in and he's attacking. He's getting kids knowing their name with his leadership team. He's like, he's pushing it. It's like a fast break. He's leading it. And he's coming. He's like, hey, I'm going to know every kid name. You talk about moving the needle as a leader, know every kid name. Right. As your leadership team, now you're like, hey, we're playing offense this day a week. I mean, I love it. Go up in there, you're working it. And that's really what's key. You know, I people hit me up on Instagram all the time, you know, and it's like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's like, you have to play offense. You know, a lot of times you hear it probably all the time. It's like, you know, before school supervision or lunch supervision or after school supervision, right? And they're supervising in a defensive mindset of like, let me see who's going to do something wrong, you know.
It's
like,
a fireman. It's a fireman waiting for the fire to start.
It's a fireman, right? It's like, oh, let me go put out that fire. Let me go put out that fire. Where if your leader is like, let's create a system where you're playing offense, right? At my school, we got music, we got chess, we got different things going on. I know exactly where all my kids are at. I know I go and play soccer with them. And yeah, I got teams that does the supervision. But for me and my leadership team, this is our time to shine. This is our time to win. Before school, you know, it's like, hey, you could easily let the emails drive your day. No, we got to get out there and we revolutionize our before school. You know, we go out there and we have interactions. We get it lively, and the same thing for after school, passing period. Like those are 4 different ways: before school, passing period, lunch, and after school. For leadership, man, you could change the game in those areas. You own those times. And you provide it with a lot of love, you will see the academic needle move for sure.
Man, I always say, like, we are missing, like, that's a whole other class period. We focus so much what's happening inside the classroom, but man, that passing time in between classes, that's a whole other time. That's a whole other class period. That's over an hour a day that we're missing out on. And so, like, one of the schools I just worked with, we actually changed the name of it. So they used to call it passing time, and now in that school we changed it to family time. What family time is, every teacher comes into the hallway, every secretary, every administrator, every employee in the school comes into the hallway for family time, and which is, I think they have 5 or 6 minutes in between. It's a big school, 6 minutes in between classes. Those 6 minutes, it's family time, and everybody's high-fiving, saying hi to kids, meeting kids, those types of things.
I mean, that's a brand. I mean, like, when you think about it, it's a brand, and kids just be like, oh, it's family time, and that brand triggers them to the expectation for that moment, right? When we have family, like, they know this is this triggers the emotion that's connected to it, and the behavior that's connected to it, and the expectations that's connected to it. When it's kidship, those things bring those different things up, right? And I tell people so much all the time, if you just highlighted language matters. You just got to be invested in the language that you decide to wrap around with. You know, I like to tell people that sometimes the weirder the better, right? Like, even if, you know, in a classroom setting, they have, you know, the old just do now, right? The do now, you come in, do now, it's really dull. But if you just change the name, like, let's say my last name is Rahh, it's like, hey, this is Rahh legendary time, whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
Like, and I'm fully invested in it. Kids will start to, like, they catch up on it even more, because do now, everybody does that, right? So we talking about that offense branding, building like a culture that's really amazing. Most of the schools I go to, they have a uniqueness about them that is just, you can't just pick up and be like, hey, let's go apply it. Like each school has they have to have their uniqueness. What makes them them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, it's like it's a personality. That's what I love about great schools, and I think that's another thing. There's a few differences, and that's one of them. Is when I step into those really extraordinary schools, you know it immediately. Like as soon as you take one step in, you can tell this place is different, man. This is really because you can sense the personality, you can sense the culture, you can sense everything about it. And those other schools, you walk in, you can't really tell what's going on. I know it ain't one of those schools. It's just it's a typical school that struggles.
You know, and it's similar to kind of like Blockbuster and Netflix when you think about schools. You know, like you know, some schools do not evolve. I know, like people talk about it, it's just like you have to evolve and change and get a lot of love and change things around and bring that spirit to your school, right? Or you'll be like Blockbuster, you're like, you know what, we've done it this way for 30 years. Nothing's going to change. You know, and then what was it? I think it was Redbox that came along, right? Redbox came along, and it was just like, oh, nothing's gonna change, right? Nothing's gonna change. And then Netflix came and wiped them all out. And I think like that's what's happening with a lot of schools, like, and nothing wrong with it. Like to be safe, be respectful, be responsible. Like, great, that's cool, right? That's been around forever. Yeah. And like, are your kids really like taking on that, or do you need to bring some uniqueness to it? To say like, hey, we want these things to happen, but we're giving it to you and we're messaging it to you in a different way.
You know, I think like the Netflix analogy is such a good one because if you think about that, like how they started, like some dude had some idea, man, I'm going to have like millions of discs, millions of DVDs. I'm going to mail them to people's houses. Remember that used to mail them to you.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're going to do what? And you think you're going to mail them back? Yeah, they're going to mail them back. They'll be mailing. See, the whole thing is completely ridiculous, but it's the same thing about schools. Like sometimes it has to be completely ridiculous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, because when you think about that concept, that is, they're rethinking schools, right? You're rethinking like the delivery of the message, and it starts out like that. That's why that the revolutionary process is something immediate that's going to trigger that, but the evolution, which is slow, gradual change, is naturally going to happen. You see the manifestation of that happening. For example, another example is like Uber, like the Uber. When Uber first started, you like, I'm not going to jump in the car with a total stranger, and I'm not going to let my kids. Now they got kids getting in Ubers, getting dropped off by strangers, you know, to school, you know, and it's part of the norm now, right? So when you first started something, you know, the teachers are like, no, this is kind of crazy. You look up, it's going to be the new norm. And then I think like that is where you have to kind of take that jump a lot of times for leaders and schools.
You know, I think like that's the part of like, you know, you're talking about like this revolutionizing school and classrooms like that, like being a part of a revolution. Everybody's down for that, but it has to be a little bit crazy. It has to be something out of the ordinary. And that's why people jump in. I mean, how many times have principals asked me like that big question? Well, how do I get my teachers to buy in? Just the fact you're asking me that lets me know that you don't have the passion, man. You're not excited about it. It ain't something out of the ordinary. It's not a revolution that anybody wants to be a part of. That question alone, of course, no one wants to buy in because you're asking me. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, I mean, the revolution is it's like you. It has to live inside of you, right? And we like. I know I can speak on besides on our school. Like my teachers see it, they feel it, and now they're living it, right? Yep. And then we have engaged each one of them in themselves to say, I am with this, right? And I can't go and say like, I want you as a teacher, you better know every kid's name. And then I don't know, hey, like, what's your name again? I know they see me out there and I know as a principal, I still teach a class. It's only one class a week, but I still teach a class. So I teach a class every Monday to keep me engaged. But my teachers see that. They said, well, I don't have no excuse, you know, because sometimes it's like, man, I got to do the attendance. I got to do the whole nine. So it's a lot easier now when we have these conversations of like, this is where we're going. Are you with me or not? And they see the work and it's like, hey, let's do this.
Man, that revolution as a part of them, I think that's where the shift happens because we come in, we kick off the year and everybody's excited and it's that journey and the excitement and the theme and the initiatives and everything we're doing, that's like what we're doing. But at some point, it makes that shift from what we're doing to who we are.
Yep.
And now, when it becomes who we are as a staff, you can see it, man. Like just the way the teacher walks down the hallway, just the expression on their face, how they present themselves, the way they stand in front of the class. It's so obvious.
Oh man, it's evident, and I think it goes and it goes hand in hand too with this family, like because if you set this tone, like now as a family, one thing is hard to true family is hard to just my brother we're going out there growing up. My brother got in a fight. Guess what? I got in a fight too. Right? If I got in a fight, my brother got in a fight, right? And it's similar to like this revolution that we have in our school of like, hey, when your teacher is going, we're going like we're moving like together in this like crazy momentum, and it's like we don't know necessarily what's at the end of this, or even if it is an end, but it's so great that we're all on this journey together, and that's what it's all about, right? Because now who wins? We win, but the kids win, the community wins. It's really great when you have parents and you have the community say like, man, we are behind that school. Yeah, we love what they're doing, right? And I think for leaders, and a lot of my work is really with leadership because although I'm a practitioner still, I still work with people and consult in regards of school leadership, and which is humbling, you know what I mean, to say like, hey, I'm a practitioner, you're still consulting with me to know what we're doing. And a lot of times it's like you have to live this, right? And you have to inspire, facilitate, but be really self-aware on what you are about. Like, who are you? What do you represent? And why are you there? Like those three things are like huge, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And then also in this role that we both have, and I don't know about you, but I mean, I've seen a lot of professionals that consult and do what we do and travel around. And for some of them, I don't know if they truly get it because maybe they're not secure enough yet, but like when I walk into a school, I'm self-aware to the point where I see some amazing teacher. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so much better than me. Like, you know what I mean? Where like it's because like I know on social media we get, you kind of put it on this pedestal when you make a video or whatever. But the truth is like there are phenomenal, like there are multiple educators in every school. They're way beyond me, man. They're so good.
Man, not just that. I mean, Instagram alone is like international free PD. Right. You can learn so much from all these educators across the nation from just Instagram and social media. But then it's like, I think like when I see a teacher, I'll tell you a quick story. I seen a teacher that by far, I mean, she was amazing. And I think the best thing about it is like, you're a freaking rock star. No point intended. No point intended. Yeah. But like you are a rock star, and like being transparent, like man, you're killing. And acknowledge that, bring it up, and being just totally transparent. A lot of consultant work is just still like, hey man, I don't know all. You think I know everything? Are you kidding me? Man. Heck no, are you kidding me, right? But also I build that empathy of also like, man, because also I was that principal that became I was a young principal. I'm still, I guess, fairly young, but I was a principal leading teachers at 29, and I didn't have the 10-year, 15-year in the classroom, right? But also, I think it's also different. It's like, man, I'm 20 years or 30 years at this moment of this community, right? So like that's a different set, but going to different schools, it's like, hey, teach me, man, like what's going on? And like, we're on this thing. It's like, you're probably doing this. You build a small revolution every PD you do. Right, it's like us against the world, Like that's the golden like team right there. Like, hey, they lead that, and they're like, hey, we're rocking this.
Yeah, for me, man, it's partly that. It's exactly what's happening in schools with what you're doing. Like, I want to do that, but just like you, man, like I think it's really important that we do a better job at providing teachers with the evidence that it's working, that what they're doing is working. Like going back to the data, I think we're really good at that because we can show them scores are up and look at this and this is great. But ain't nobody signed up for that. Nobody sat someday, nobody sat in their bed when they were, in 8th grade and thought someday when I grow up, I want to improve the data for some kids. Like, no one thinks about that. What they really want to do is to make a difference in the lives of people. And when we can show them when that's happening and like prove it to them and give them the evidence that kids' lives are changing because what you're doing each and every day, that's when we can have just an amazing results in our schools.
Absolutely, man. I think providing that is like providing a great athlete with the basketball or the cleats that need, like they're giving them the toolkit. But I think like even also adding on to that is providing leadership too with the tools to allow teachers to win and to flourish. Yeah. Right. Because I think like sometimes a lot of schools that I like even worked with, it was like, man, there's so much amazing things. And then there's amazing things happening in individual classrooms. Right. And it's not being, I'm like, wait, man, you're coming in and don't get me wrong, you're coming in and you're asking me for this PD. Hey, it's room 102. Yeah. You need to have her or him do it because they're right here doing it. Right? Like they're right. Get up out the way. It doesn't always have to like get out the way and inspire that teacher to move the needle for you. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Like, hey, I take it, but you have that. And as I tell even leaders, even I had to start, and I'm fairly new. It's like, I want you to be Kobe, like, but not Kobe, but Kobe. What I mean by that is like, everybody know Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players ever. And I'm an LA guy. So, I'm a big Kobe fan. So, do you remember when, I don't know if you follow basketball, but Kobe Bryant, when Phil Jackson and Shaq was gone, he was like, he was on a tour, 35 points a game, 81, like doing all these crazy things, but he was getting knocked out the playoffs every year. And then he realized, like, man, I can't do this by myself, man. What happened? Phil Jackson came back and got coached, and they won some championships. And what I mean by that is, there's teachers doing amazing things, and they're like, hey, I just want to do this in isolation and putting stuff on their wall, covering the windows and doing whatever the case may be. And they're like doing all the crazy things in the classroom, and they're booming. They're Kobe. They're fadeaway jump shot. They got the relationships. You got the dunk. They got the think, pair, share. They got it all, right? But they want to do it in isolation. They're not willing to be coached. And what I say is like, man, you can win games, but you won't win championships. So you can win in that classroom, but you're not going to win as a school, right? And the same thing for principals. It's like, man, it's okay to say like, hey, man, I need a coach here. I need a coach to see that balcony so I can win championships. And what I mean by that is win and transform and save the school and lives in your school daily by opening up and saying like, hey, we're collective here. And it's okay to say, hey, I need a coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. So, my theory about that is, because you're right, man, like as soon as a teacher realizes that they're struggling, they go get the construction paper, they cut out that rectangle that's going to fit perfectly over that skinny window on the door so no one knows what's going on in there. And, they try to hide because, and I think here's what I think it is. I think it's because this is such a huge undertaking. It's such an emotional work, and they know they might be failing kids. You know what I mean? Like, and that's painful, man. And they almost are afraid to deal with that or let people know because they feel so bad about it.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, give me 1 second, real quick.
Yeah, cool. Do it.
Hold on, turn it. Sorry about that.
It's rockstar parenting right there, baby.
Man, rockstar parenting. Hey, man,
Hey, man, let me ask you a question. When you're looking yeah, man. Let me ask you a quick question. When you're looking for a new team member, a new family member on staff, and they're coming to interview and they're sitting before you, like, how do you find them? Like, that's the hardest part.
Man, you know what? Teacher recruitment is probably one of the most really use or approaches for a lot of school leaders. They figure like, oh, we're at school, they're just going to come to us, right? Yeah. I know for me, I'm very intentional, and our team, we're very intentional about who we bring in our building and who we put in front of kids. And we're intentional about recruiting too. So we have like a whole timeline on how we're going to recruit educators. But when we finally get that educator and we go through that, our criteria is really about being humble. And the humility is so important because we got a lot of rock stars on our staff. And if you're inspiring, like people, everybody has their own talent. And you got to be okay when that person is winning. Be like, yo, they are winning. Like, let them. When they're facilitating PD, I'm pretty sure you're. Oh man, here this person goes. And you can get blocked off. You don't have that humility. You get blocked off. Like, here they go. And you don't want to take anything that they say because you're blocked off, right? So like, you need to be humble. You need to be humble. Second is like, you need to be hungry, like to serve in our community, but you also need to be hungry about your craft. Like I can't. Like there's one thing I'm passionate about kids. But I'm also passionate about like history, right? Like I was a history major, so I'm passionate about those things. Like I can't teach you passion for math. Like if you're my algebra 2 teacher, you gotta have that passion and that content. Like you gotta know that, but you also need to be like really about that life when it comes to teaching our kids here in Watson Compton, right? And so we say like you gotta be hungry, and then last you gotta be like smart. And we have these questions that and last you gotta be smart, and not just smart and understanding your content, but interpersonal. And I'm pretty sure leadership is like you can deal with a lot of adult issues, and you got to be like smart with interpersonal relationships on like how you work with others, collaboration, communication, and the connection that you have. And are you somebody who's a team? Like, you want to be on a team, or and really that's what we're trying to get to. If you're somebody who want to be on a team, or somebody who want to be part of a family. And that is like the difference in what we try to do at our school is we want people that want to be part of this family. And when you're part of a family, you walk, talk, act different. When you're part of a team, you walk and talk and act different. So
I have a friend of mine when he was a principal, and that dude had no shame when it came to recruiting. I mean, if he saw anything on the news, online, on Facebook, if he'd look up teacher of the year at schools and neighboring districts. He would call him on the phone at home. He had no shame, and he would. Yeah, man, I love it, and that's the thing, man. He was a state champion football coach too in his football days. I mean, it's all about being competitive, and sometimes that there's something wrong. People feel weird about that in education, but I don't, man. Like he really wants the very best for his kids.
Absolutely, man. It's like you got to go and get it. You got to go and get it, right? And it's like if they're happy. They're happy with you. Like, let's say your principal, you got some teachers, you got an English teacher, 11th grade or 6th grade English teacher. I have a 6th grade vacancy, I've seen her teacher of the year. Hey, how you doing? Are you looking? Are you curious about any positions? Oh, I have a job. All right, but are you interested? Are you interested? I'm still going to ask, right? Are you interested? And if she says, you know what, send me some information. That's all we need now. Like, let's talk. If they're happy, they're going to be like, hey, no, we're cool. No, I'm good. I'm happy where I'm at. Yeah. And what I tell the principals is if you're strong with your culture and you're strong with your family, they're not going to want to leave. They're not going to want to leave. They'll be like, no, thank you, but no thank you. And then shut it down. It's almost like a relationship. Like you got to, I'm married, like, hey, are you a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the case may be. If they're happy with you, somebody can try to sneak in their DMs or something. Oh no, I'm taking. Well, if they're not happy with you, they may kind of entertain. You know what I mean? And that's what you got. You got to make sure your teachers are happy with you.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man. If you were going to give somebody advice, let's say we got a kid graduating from college and going into their first year, or maybe to switch to another school, and they're young in their career, and their history has been, that outside the city, suburban thing, subdivision, and that's where they grew up. That's where they've been teaching. That's their whole experience. Where they got a little bit of diversity out there, but not much. Typically, everybody goes to college, 2 parents, home. You got a nanny at the house, and somebody cleans the house for them, and they're going into a more of an inner city urban school, and that's their job. If they're going to take it, what words would you share with them as they're going to step into that?
Wow, right. I think the biggest thing is be patient. First, be patient. Second is seek out a mentor or coach, going back to my, like, seek out somebody who's walked that path and is similar to you, like have a similar mindset, have a similar philosophy, have a similar, like, went through it, so they can lead you in the right direction. Like, I lean a lot on mentorship. I'm sure you got to your place in craft with having people that you either read upon, who got support, who taught you, like, hey, these are the pitfalls I made, and you, like, you really need that. So, hey, educator, revolutionary educator, speaking to you, find somebody you trust that can mentor you. Second is, I would definitely become self-aware on just my strengths as an educator, knowing, like, what am I good, like, what am I good at, right? What are my microaggressions? What are my implicit bias? Like, what are these things? What are these factors? Because you can be all about, you still have these things, right? So you need to be self-aware, so you won't always, so even when you project them, because you will project them at one point or another, that you know what to do and how to bring it back, right? And then third is, like, I would develop, and I know it's young, I would try to develop an academic philosophy. And what I mean by that is, what do you truly believe in? Like, do you truly believe that all kids can learn, right? I'm not saying that all kids can be Albert Einstein, right? But I'm just saying, like, do you believe all kids can learn? Do you believe all kids can do this? And, like, what does that mean for you? Like, those three things, keeping it limited, there's, of course, a lot, but I would definitely look into mentorship. I would definitely look into self-awareness on what my strengths are, and I would definitely build an academic philosophy for myself.
Yeah. You know, and also, man, I think just being authentic too, like being honest with those kids. Hey, man, I didn't grow up here.
I didn't grow up.
I need some help, man. You got to teach me. Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest leverage that anybody can have, is honesty.
Yeah.
Right. And being, like, open and vulnerable. I know Brene Brown does a lot of work with courage and vulnerability, but saying, like, man, listen, y'all. And you're gonna build so much, like, you're gonna get so much clout with that. Of just like, yo, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, you guys. Own it. Just own it. Like, if you own it, like, kids be like, especially, I'm secondary. I mean, for the primary, may be different, but you're in middle school, high school, man, you'll have some kids just like, hey, you start having kids like, hey, they'll be on your side. They become allies real quick. Right. And I think you could use that and leverage it and win with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, and like my experience with that, I was a music major and I was a band director for a long time. But then I went and in Texas, if you can pass what they call the exit test, you can teach it. So I took the exit test in biology and I passed that first. I don't know how, dude, but I passed it. And I never even had a biology class. And now I'm teaching biology. I don't know anything. But you know what, man? Like, I'm in the storage room with the kids. I'm like, I got the book. Hey, man, find me a beaker. Who knows what a beaker is? Kids find a picture of a beaker. And so, like, we're in there together with me and my crew after school trying to put together the lab together on a cart, you know, and dude, like, we all learned. It was amazing.
No, absolutely, man. And knowing, I think also for any new teacher going in, man, it's not going to be perfect. Be authentic. Hey, stuff is going to happen. Like, you're going to experience some things, and it's going to be like, hey, you may lose some hair, okay? It may, but the thing about it is, like, enjoy the process too of learning. Man, as a first year teacher, man, oh my goodness, I probably did so many. Well, no, I did so many crazy things. Like, I'm like, whoa, what was I thinking? Because I didn't have no mentorship. I didn't have no, I had somebody was just like, hey, man, I remember my first day coming to Markham Middle School and taking mine. I'm from the community, so you couldn't tell me nothing. That's why I say be open to coaching, because I walked in there. I'm like, I know everybody. I know this one. I'm walking in. It was like, hey, your classroom's in the back, 77B. I got there, and I was the turnaround teacher. I got all the kids that nobody wanted. I didn't know that at the time. So I'm a new teacher. I get all the kids. I'm in there like, man, what the heck is going on here? Like, it was, oh, man, oh, my gosh. I could tell you on and on about stories going on in there. But just as a new teacher, work with it. Be open to coaching. Get a coach that you trust, that has a record of success, because you got these, nothing wrong with, you have a lot of researchers out here that's doing a lot of research. That's great. It's great. But then it's like they never taught a day in their life, right? Or they did. They never taught kids that you're in front of teaching every day. And it's like, it sounds great. And it's like, who do you want to go to kind of battle with? Do you want to go to battle with the 25-year researcher about, World War II, not to connect to World War II, but just are the person that's like, hey, I've been on the front lines, I've done this work, and I've been successful at it, and I think that's important for you to have.
Isn't that true? How oftentimes a lot of that research comes from people that, you have to make a distinction between teaching and talking. Like, they were talking. They stood in front of a class. A whole bunch of kids just sat there and stared at them, and they were talking, and the kids did what they said to do. But that ain't teaching, man.
Exactly.
It's a world of difference between teaching and talking. And it's true, man. Like, if they haven't been in the classroom, if somebody really hasn't been before the kids in the last, I don't know, few years, because these kids are, everybody's, people think outside the classroom, kids are kids, have been there, they're the same, just like they were 10 years ago. No, they weren't. They're nothing like they were 10 years ago. Just social media alone, man, it's just a whole different world.
It is, man. And use it, leverage it, right? And it's a tool to be leveraged, like especially social media. I mean, think about us as educators. We connected through social media. Right. Yep. And we connected. I've learned so much through social media just off of how to be a better leader, how to connect with my kids more, how to build, like one of the things our school is probably doing really successful. We're building an aspirational environment with our school page, right? Like we do just for engagement on our page, we give off student rewards to try to promote positive digital citizenship. Right. So it's like lean into this world because it's not going anywhere.
Nope.
Right. And those who understand the dynamics can learn so much. As a teacher, there's so many tools out there in social media for you to like talk to. We're at people like you are a DM away of like, hey, I have a question. Like, what are your thoughts on? Right. Like there's so much free resources that's out there. You just got to be hungry.
Yeah, and ask, man. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, I'm telling you, like, I don't even know how many hundreds of people ask me some question. I'll call them on the phone. And like, oh my God, I don't care. Like that's like, I've never asked somebody for help or feedback or something, and somebody said no. Everyone will help. It's teachers. We're all going to help. All you have to do is ask.
You ask, and take in mind, look at, if you're a principal in 2020 now, you definitely should have a social media page to promote your school page. Like if you're talking about truly trying to leverage stakeholders and community stakeholders and partnerships, like if you're missing a bit, like for example, in 1 year, we got Planet Fitness to redo our gym, the Los Angeles Clippers to redo our whole basketball courts. In 1 year, that's over $200,000 of work from a DM. Yeah. One DM on Instagram and a visit to the school in less than 18 months, a whole new weight room and gymnasium because they were behind a movement, right? And I think like if you are trying to get every resource you can for your school and your students, you are missing it if you are not promoting. Because who's the number one fan of schools? Who's the number one cheerleader? It should be the principal.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, right? And if you're the number one fan and number one principal, you're not promoting it, then you're not doing a great job of it. They're doing that, So that's how I look at it.
Man, and here's the other thing on the other side of that is this is a time where we really can shift a culture of the school from the outside in. Where years ago, the only way we could affect culture is by the work that we're doing inside the walls of the classroom, and then hopefully that would pour out into the community. But now with social media, we can do it the opposite way around, where what we're posting on social media, now that gives the community a perception of what's happening in the school, which now raises their expectation of us, which raises our expectation of ourselves. And the whole thing is this crazy, awesome cycle.
It's a crazy cycle because, I mean, social media, the good, bad, and ugly is It's like you could put lipstick and makeup on a pig and they'd be thinking it's the beautiful thing. Of course, you got to kind of back it up when people get there. But from social media, everybody's seeing it. You're like, man, wait, this looks amazing. This looks amazing. And you get to the place, you're like, wait, this is not what it looked like. But if you're backing it up, now you have people that want to join. They want to be part of this, right? You control the narrative. And I tell this to principals all the time. It's like, hey, I'm at this turnaround school. What do I do? Like, how do I do it? Like, and a lot of times, we're in a day and age where student enrollment is going down. Like everything is just, and I'm like, listen, you gotta get ahead of this. You got to redefine and get in control the narrative of your school. And the best way you can do it is by making an impact from my feeling is, of course, you want to do it inside the four walls. But also promoting that and controlling the narrative through social media, where people are like, "Wow, this is amazing! What's going on there?" So.
Yep. So I always say, man, either you can control the narrative or some angry, crazy mom will. One of the two is going to happen.
Oh, for sure. And some dads.
Yep.
Don't get it. They will control it. You set the culture, or the culture will set you.
Yeah. Hey, man, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate you hanging out with me. And just, man, all the work you're doing is just so impressive. And what it is, man, what I love about it, it gives other school leaders just the model that it's possible. Because I think that for so many, like, just the fact of seeing that it's possible, they know they can make it happen.
No, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it, and just to be a vessel for educators across the nation, I think is really, really awesome. I think you are living that rock star for educators, and I think I just admire your work. I appreciate it, and then hopefully there's leaders across the nation, teachers across the nation that's inspired to revolutionize their school and revolutionize the game for where they're at. Change the world.
How can people find you? Yeah, man. Tell me.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, man, give them my note. We'll put it in the show notes, and we'll put the links up there. But just in case they're driving in their car, what's the best way to track you down?
Man, they can go on Facebook, Principal Rahh, Instagram and Twitter at Principal Rahh. And Rahh is pronounced like R-A-W, but it's spelled R-A-H-H. So Principal Rahh. And man, and look out for the book. That's my debut book is coming out actually in June. That's going to be really awesome, called School Culture Revolutionized.
Are you going to publish that yourself? Are you doing it through Dave? Or
it's actually going to be self-published.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man.
That's the way to do it, man. Hey, I got the marathon on, man. It's self-published, man. Ownership.
Doing it. All right, brother. Take care, man. I appreciate you.
This has been the Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman. Subscribe, rate, and share from halbowman.com/podcast.